Remember when one fast-talking Detroit cop walked into Beverly Hills and made every tailored suit in the city look stupid? Directed by Martin Brest and released by Paramount Pictures in 1984, Beverly Hills Cop became the biggest movie in America. The film starred Eddie Murphy as Axel Foley, a streetwise Detroit detective investigating his friend's murder in the most polished zip code in California. Along for the ride were Judge Reinhold as the eager but slightly clueless Rosewood, John Ashton as the permanently irritated Taggart, and Ronnie Cox as Lieutenant Bogomil. What started as a troubled, constantly rewritten action script turned into the highest-grossing film of 1984 and one of the most quotable comedies of the entire decade. Today we're going to count down 15 weird facts about Beverly Hills Cop. And stick around for number one because the police chief is holding his actual script pages in the scene, and the director left it in on purpose. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype up this video. It helps YouTube show this to more retro movie fans just like you. All right, let's head to Beverly Hills. Number 15. Axel Foley almost had a completely different face. It's physically impossible to imagine Beverly Hills Cop without Eddie Murphy. But he was not the first choice. He wasn't the second choice either. The man who defined Axel Foley was basically Plan C. Plan A was Mickey Rourke. Before the project leaned into comedy, Rourke signed a $400,000 holding deal to play the lead. But the script got stuck in development limbo. Dates kept shifting, his contract expired, and he walked away without cameras ever rolling. $400,000 not to make a movie. That's Hollywood accounting at its finest. And then came Plan B. Sylvester Stallone signed on. He stripped out the comedy, darkened the tone, and renamed the main character Axel Cabretti, which sounds less like a Detroit cop and more like a guy who considers property damage a personality trait. Stallone's version was a full-blown, ultra-violent action spectacle with massive explosions and set pieces so expensive that Paramount executives started doing the math on napkins, and they were not liking the answers. 2 weeks before filming, Stallone walked away, and the producers called Eddie Murphy. Murphy stepped in at the 11th hour, but the script was still the grim Stallone version. He and director Martin Brest leaned hard into improv to inject the comedy back in while the movie rebuilt itself in real time. And Stallone's rejected rewrite didn't go to waste. He recycled quite a bit of it into his 1986 film Cobra. Number 14. The R-rated movie beat everybody. In 1984, Beverly Hills Cop became the first R-rated movie in history to cross $200 million at the domestic box office. And it did that during its original theatrical run, with 0 re-releases to help it along. Worldwide, the film raked in over $315 million. In mid-80s money, that's the kind of number that makes studio executives start sweating through their suits. Now, Beverly Hills Cop finished 1984 as the #1 movie in America. It beat Ghostbusters, it beat Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. The film held the title of highest-grossing R-rated movie in U.S. history for nearly 20 years. It took The Matrix Reloaded showing up in 2003 to finally push Axel Foley off the throne. The R-rated comedy record lasted even longer. 25 years until The Hangover staggered into Vegas and then claimed it. And Hollywood noticed. Before this, R-rated films were the risky shelf of the release calendar. Beverly Hills Cop kicked that door open and proved that you could be loud, sarcastic, and absolutely not family-friendly and still outdraw every 4-quadrant crowd pleaser in the country. Number 13. The movie almost came down to a quarter. The existence of Beverly Hills Cop came down to a coin flip. An actual physical coin flip. After getting fired from War Games, director Martin Brest wasn't exactly racing to jump back into another high-pressure studio production. His confidence was bruised. The script had already been through multiple rewrites, and the whole thing had the smell of a project that could go sideways quickly. Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer were pursuing him hard, but Brest couldn't commit, so he pulled out a quarter. Heads, I take the job. Tails, I walk away. It landed on heads, and according to reports, Brest later framed that question and hung it on his wall, which is either a charming testament to fate or the most stressful piece of home decor a human being can own. Once he signed on, the job almost ate him alive. The tone was shifting between action and comedy on a take-by-take basis, and Brest was responsible for making sure the whole thing didn't tip into full parody or slide back into the grim revenge thriller that it nearly became. On a particularly brutal day of shooting, he reportedly smoked 7 packs of cigarettes. That's roughly 140 cigs between action and rap. That's not stress management. That's a man trying to replace his lungs with nicotine and pure willpower. Number 12. The Super Cop speech was made from Genius and Caffeine. You know the scene. Axel Foley storms into the Beverly Hills police station and starts spinning a completely unhinged story about super cops from some secret task force. Taggart looks confused. Rosewood looks impressed. And Axel is talking like his brain is buffering at 2x speed while his mouth tries to keep up. Most of that was made up on the spot. Murphy was exhausted that day. The man famously avoided drugs and rarely even touched caffeine. But someone handed him a cup of coffee, he took a couple of sips, and that tiny amount hit his system like a freight train with no brakes. Mid-scene, Axel Foley abandoned the script entirely and started machine gunning words at a room full of stunned detectives, selling a ridiculous super detective backstory with the confidence of a man who knows he's lying but doesn't care because he's having too much fun. Director Martin Brest encouraged improv on set, so Murphy just kept going and going. And the crew let the cameras roll because stopping him would have been like unplugging a jukebox during the best song it ever played. Watch it again closely. Ashton looks down and physically pinches himself to keep from breaking. Reinhold turns away with a half smirk, jaws clenched, fighting for his life against a laugh that wants out. Two professional actors reduced to desperate self-control techniques while a 23-year-old caffeinated tornado rewrites the scene around them. Number 11, the banana was almost a potato. The banana in the tailpipe gag is one of the most quoted moments in 80s comedy. In the original script, Axel is supposed to disable the cop car using potatoes. The idea made mechanical sense. They're solid, dense, and you could almost believe jamming one into a tailpipe would actually do something. Potatoes are the practical choice. Potatoes, also the boring choice. But during filming at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, production couldn't get access to the kitchen, and there was no time to wait around while someone negotiated potato logistics, so according to screenwriter Daniel Petrie Jr. and producer Jerry Bruckheimer, the crew raided a decorative fruit bowl in the hotel lobby. They grabbed a bunch of bananas and then handed them to Eddie Murphy like it was always the plan. That one swap rewired the entire scene. The prop changed, the dialogue changed, and Murphy improvised the line, "Look man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe." And it landed so hard it became one of the most repeated jokes of the entire decade. You couldn't survive a middle school hallway in the late 80s without hearing some kid butcher that delivery at least twice a day. Number 10, Serge was supposed to be a nobody. For Beverly Hills Cop, the character who stole the movie was never supposed to matter. When Bronson Pinchot got hired, it was for a tiny role as the art gallery clerk. Instead, Pinchot walked into the audition with an accent that could only be described as vaguely European but emotionally devastating. It sounded like it came from a country that doesn't exist, but absolutely should. And director Martin Brest lost his mind over it. Pinchot's delivery is so funny that Brest started expanding the part on the fly. Other minor roles got trimmed, exposition got cut, and scenes were rearranged. The famous dismissive attitude, that whole don't be stupid energy, came from real life. Pinchot later revealed that he based Serge's mannerisms on a makeup artist that he once worked with. He took that slightly condescending, hyper-confident tone and cranked it up a volume that the original person would have probably found offensive, and then wrapped it in a mystery accent that needed its own passport. Serge came back for Beverly Hills Cop 3, and again decades later in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Pinchot walked in to say hello near a painting and walked out owning every scene he touched. Number 9, the red meat fight that got him hired. The now famous exchange about 5 pounds of red meat in his bowels was an audition that went beautifully off the rails. When Judge Ashton and Judge Reinhold came in to read together, director Martin Brest didn't hand them scripted dialogue. He just told them to talk about anything. He wanted to see if two actors could exist in the same room without the energy going flat. So instead of reading lines like professionals, they launched into a completely improvised argument about diet, digestion, and whether Rosewood was essentially fermenting 5 pounds of undigested red meat inside his body like some kind of human slow cooker. Ashton went full grumpy dad energy, and Reinhold went full wide-eyed health nut who genuinely believes that he's making a valid medical point. The two of them bickered like an old married couple trapped in a car with broken air conditioning. And Brest loved it so much that he scripted the original stakeout dialogue and told them to recreate that audition rant almost word for word on camera. That's why the scene feels so loose and weirdly specific, because two actors walked into a casting room, started arguing about bowel movements, and accidentally invented one of the best comedy pairings of the 1980s. Number 8, Axel's boss wasn't acting. Every great 80s action movie needs an angry police captain. The guy who slams the desk and chews out the hero. But in Beverly Hills Cop, that role belonged to Inspector Todd, and that man playing him has never acted a day in his life. Gil Hill was a real Detroit homicide inspector when director Martin Brest found him during location scouting. Brest walked into an actual police station looking for set dressing and stumbled onto a fully formed movie character just sitting behind a desk. Hill had 0 film credits and 0 stage training. But Brest saw something that no casting director could manufacture. A man who looked and sounded like he spent decades telling people exactly what to do and watching them do it immediately. Because, well, he had. Brest's direction was reportedly simple. Don't act. Just be yourself. Hill's entire Hollywood career began and ended with Axel Foley. He came back for Beverly Hills Cop 2 and 3, and that was it. After the films, he moved into politics and ran for the mayor of Detroit. Most actors chase bigger roles after a hit franchise, and Gil Hill, well, he chased an entire city. Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Beverly Hills Cop's behind-the-scenes chaos, hit that like button. It tells YouTube that you want more stories about the movies that somehow survived development hell and still became classics. And drop a comment with your favorite Beverly Hills Cop moment. Number 7. Some locations were real. One was very much still open for business. Figuring out what was a real location in Beverly Hills Cop versus what was built on a soundstage depends entirely on how fancy or how questionable the venue was. The actual Beverly Hills Police Department denied the crew permission to film inside, so Brest built a better one on a soundstage, recycling sleek design concepts left over from his brief stint on War Games. He designed it to feel less like a working precinct and more like private security for people who summer as a verb. The contrast with Detroit's cluttered desks and paper stacks was completely deliberate. The set design did the culture clash work, so the dialogue didn't have to. The art gallery where Axel reconnects with Jenny, real location. A working high-end Los Angeles gallery. The production just walked in and let actual expensive art make everyone in a Detroit sweatshirt feel underdressed. And the strip club scene? That's also real, with real working dancers who were fully clocked in when the cameras arrived. The crew didn't simulate the atmosphere. They just showed up somewhere that already had it covered. Number 6. Everyone thinks they invented Axel Foley. 3 different people claim credit for the origin story of Beverly Hills Cop, and every single one of them sounded absolutely certain that they were right. Let's start with the executive suite. Then Paramount president Michael Eisner said the idea hit him in 1975 after getting pulled over in Beverly Hills while driving what he described as a battered station wagon. The officer who stopped him had that unmistakable Beverly Hills tone, polite and polished, and Eisner walked away convinced that there was a movie in the culture clash between street-level grid and manicured lawn money. Then there's producer Don Simpson, one half of the Simpson-Bruckheimer power duo. Simpson said that he developed the concept in 1977. A tough, streetwise cop dropped into the wealthy bubble of Beverly Hills. And then the third claim walked in wearing a badge. Former undercover Beverly Hills officer Lynn Franklin believed that the movie borrowed heavily from his 1976 memoir, Sword of Justice. Franklin alleged that screenwriter Daniel Petrie Jr. had access to the book years before the script materialized, and he didn't think that it was a coincidence. He even considered legal action in the mid-'80s. The scoreboard reads, 1 studio president with a speeding ticket, 1 mega producer with an ego to match his vision, and 1 real cop with a manuscript and a very specific theory about where Hollywood got its homework. And all 3 walked away convinced that they minted Axel Foley. Number 5. Pittsburgh got switched to Detroit. Back in 1981, screenwriter Danilo Bach wrote the first draft under the title Beverly Drive. The lead character wasn't a fast-talking Detroit cop, though, named Axel Foley. It was a Pittsburgh cop named Ellie Axel. Ellie. That's the name of someone who returns library books early and apologizes to furniture when he bumps into it. The premise had the same bones, though. A tough, blue-collar cop heads to Beverly Hills to investigate the murder of somebody close to him. But the tone was an entirely different animal. Bach's version played it straight, gritty, humorless. But somewhere in the decade-long journey from page to screen, the story's DNA mutated. The skeleton stayed. Wrong side of the tracks cop, murder investigation, Beverly Hills culture shock. What started as a standard 80s action revenge script evolved into something looser, sharper, and infinitely more rewatchable. Good thing, too, because Ellie Axel, Grim Pittsburgh Avenger, that's the kind of title that ends up in a blockbuster clearance bin by February. Axel Foley's the kind of character who talks his way into box office history and makes it look easy. Number 4, the Beverly Hills Cop TV show that almost happened. In 2013, somebody in Hollywood looked at Beverly Hills Cop and thought, you know what this franchise needs? A CBS procedural with commercial breaks every 12 minutes. CBS developed a full pilot starring Brandon T. Jackson as Aaron Foley, Axel's son, now working as a Beverly Hills detective. And on the surface, the thing had serious firepower behind it. The pilot was going to be directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, the man who was behind Men in Black. Eddie Murphy wasn't just lending his name to a press release, he actually showed up, guest starring as Axel Foley and signing on as executive producer. So with all that talent and momentum, CBS passed. Audiences reacted so strongly to Murphy's appearance that CBS wanted him back on as a regular basis. Pop in every few episodes, boost the ratings, be that legacy anchor. But Murphy said no. He had zero interest in returning to television on a recurring basis. And he definitely wasn't going to become the occasional nostalgic guest star in his own franchise. The man created Axel Foley. He wasn't about to play second fiddle to Axel Foley's kid on a network that also airs NCIS wherever. Without Murphy's commitment, CBS cooled off fast. Director Sonnenfeld later suggested corporate turf wars between CBS and Paramount might have played a role too. The kind of executive chess match that has nothing to do with the storytelling and everything to do with who controls what. Number 3, Axel's Sweatshirt launched 1,000 mail orders. Before influencer drops and sneaker raffles, a Detroit cop in a movie accidentally started a fashion craze about a piece of gym class clothing. That Mumford High School crew neck that Axel Foley wears throughout the film wasn't a made-up prop. Mumford High was a real public school in Detroit, and the wardrobe team picked it for the most unglamorous reason imaginable. It just felt authentic. They wanted Eddie Murphy to look like a guy who actually came from somewhere. So they grabbed a Mumford High sweatshirt, they threw it on the biggest movie star in America, and then moved on without a second thought. The movie became huge, and the sweatshirt turned into a problem. Mumford High started getting buried in orders, thousands of them, from all over the country. People in California, New York, Texas, fans who had never been within 500 miles of Michigan suddenly were desperate to own gear from a Detroit public school that they couldn't find on a map. Before the movie, though, that sweatshirt was standard issue school gear. And after the movie, knockoffs flooded the market and official replicas followed. Decades later, you can still buy licensed versions online, which means a costume designer's throwaway wardrobe decision has been generating sales for over 40 years. Number 2, the soundtrack took over the 80s. Beverly Hills Cop dropped a soundtrack that went from background music to full-blown cultural takeover in about 6 weeks. The centerpiece was a track that had absolutely no business becoming a pop hit, Axel F by composer Harold Faltermeyer. An instrumental, pure unapologetic 80s synth. Zero lyrics, zero of the things that were supposed to make a song commercially viable in 1984. But man, it's catchy. And it climbed all the way to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, parking itself between power ballads and rock anthems like it belonged there. An electric keyboard riff elbowed its way onto the same chart as like Bruce Springsteen and Prince. And nobody could do a thing about it because the entire country was already humming it involuntarily. You know it. That little synth line became the sound of the entire decade. And then there was the rest of the album, which hit just as hard. The Heat Is On by Glenn Frey peaked at number 2 and essentially became the unofficial anthem of every high-speed 80s montage ever committed to film. Neutron Dance by the Pointer Sisters landed in the top 10, perfectly synced to the film's opening truck chase and giving the movie that kinetic, borderline chaotic energy from the first frame. And New Attitude by Patti LaBelle cracked the top 20 as a comeback smash, giving the diva one of her biggest hits ever, and helped transcend the movie entirely. 4 songs, 4 charting hits, all from the same movie. That kind of batting average, that doesn't happen by accident. You left the theater with Axel's lines in your mouth and that synth riff already setting up permanent residence in your brain. And number 1, the police chief was literally holding the script. Beverly Hills Cop had a script, technically, but it also had a crew that kept rewriting the script at a speed that would make most productions file for emotional damages. Revised pages were being handed to actors between setups. Dialogue was swapped out minutes before takes. And in one scene, all of that is permanently visible. If you know where to look, of course. When Chief Hubbard storms into the station to confront Axel and the detectives, pay attention to what actor Stephen Elliott is holding. Those rolled up papers, they look like police reports, case files, something official that a busy chief would naturally carry through his own department. But they were his script pages. Elliott had reportedly been handed revised dialogue so close to shooting that he hadn't memorized the lines yet. Instead of stalling production, he grabbed the pages, rolled them up, walked onto set, and performed the scene holding a screenplay that was still being rewritten while the movie was being filmed. Director Martin Brest saw it and left it in the final cut. Elliott wasn't alone either. In that same sequence, Ronnie Cox was reportedly delivering dialogue that was roughly 30 minutes old. Most productions rehearse for weeks. This one was handing actors warm pages and pointing them toward a camera. And there you have it, 15 weird and wild facts about Beverly Hills Cop. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments and share this with a friend who still knows every word to Axel F. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And until next time, this is Remember When.